Well, welcome. This is Dr. Peter K.B. St. Jean of the Peaceful World Movement. I want to remind you that our show, The Shy Peace Show, is brought to you by our organization, the Peaceful World Movement. That's on 11451 South Michigan Avenue, P.O. Box 206308, Chicago, Illinois 60628. Telephone number 716-603-0992, and you can reach us on the web at www.shypeace.net. Today I have the distinct pleasure of having a partner in peace here with me. Well, two partners in peace. My co-host here, Glenn Durant. Glenn? Which one is Glenn? Which one of you is Glenn? There you go, Glenn. And a man here, Norman Kerr, the guy with the beard that I'm trying to grow, but I guess a little bit late for me. And we're gonna reminisce. We have a golden opportunity, folks. You get to have a double header with us. We have a first half an hour and a second hour, half an hour. So we have 55 minutes here that we're going to discuss a variety of issues. Norman, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And my co-host again, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So tell the Chi-Town world and the rest of the world, Norman, who are you?
Man, that is such a deep question. I'm Norman Kerr. I work for an organization called UCAN, and I've been focused on violence intervention and prevention work for over the last 20 years. So now really focused on Chicago, focus on violence and trauma, but coming up with ways to really provide better support and care for our young people.
And so how did you train yourself to do that type of work?
Well, training through a lot of organizations, different interactions with individuals, with groups, but also formally going to university, of course. Went to Illinois State University and majored in political science. And I did my grad work at University of Chicago, SSA, in clinical social work.
A fellow Maroon. I'm a Maroon too, right?
Yes.
We were there. I was, he was still in high school when I was there. Is that right? Maybe something like that. Something like that. Yes. And so, folks, let me remind you that this is also a live call-in show. And those of you who are watching us on Facebook as well, you could call in at 312-738-1060, and you can join into a conversation. But in ways of introduction, Glenn, why don't you tell the world who you are?
Well, Glenn Durant, always as usual, here in Chicago with Dr. Peter St. Jean, enjoying the wonderful weather once again, and trying to make the best of a situation.
And Glenn, I'm going to put some of his secret out there, can we do that? This guy shoveled snow for the first time for real, right? And, he's in Miami, he's missing Miami, but he prefers Chicago, right? At least that's the story that I'm going with. And in the back, you can't see her, right? But that's our magical Sarah. When you call in, Sarah McKee from St. Louis area, she's one of the super guru, highly intelligent, highly motivated, always dedicated, super bright sociology and criminal justice major, and it is such an honor to have Sarah here. So when you guys come, be nice to Sarah now, right? Be nice to Sarah when you call in. Hopefully you can call us in. Now you remember that the Shy Peace Show is really about what Shy Peace is about. And if Norman, move your head to the left a little bit. The other left. Shy Peace Show, right? So you see this, the Shy Peace Show, that means the peaceful Chicago. That's all right, though. You can be in front of it. If you can move it to the side a little bit so they see the show a little bit. Which way, left or right? Okay. Right? That's all right, that's okay. We know what it says. It says it below, the Peaceful World Movement Show. So the idea of Shy Peace is actually a brand. That means Peaceful Chicago. And if you went, in a moment we will show you our website, shypeace.net. It's a non-profit organization based here in Chicago. And of course, if us here at CAN TV as a non-profit show, and when you call in at 312-738-1060, you will be supporting the non-profit effort. As a matter of fact, tonight is orientation night. And in case you guys didn't know, on the 8th of December, Saturday is also orientation night here at CAN TV, and we have a lot of guests out here tonight. And I ask those of you who have not been taking advantage yet of CAN TV to really participate to make this wonderful medium an access to all of us. So in the Side Piece show, we asked the question of how do you contribute to a more peaceful Chicago? Because the belief is that we spend a lot of time focusing on how violence is done in Chicago, but we know very little about how Chicagoans do peace. So on the Side Piece show, we spend time to give guests an opportunity to tell us about how they contribute to a more peaceful Chicago. We hear about the violence. You can read that in the news. Not too long ago, we had this mass shooting, and these shootings, 3 or more, considered mass shooting in Chicago. We have a lot of police brutality that happened. We have a lot of problems. But sometimes we ask, why aren't the problems even worse? And when we ask the question of why aren't there even more murders in Chicago, when there's more violence in Chicago, we get to find people like Norman Kerr. And so today, we're giving Norman that opportunity. He's told us a little bit about his background, and soon we're going to find out about an organization that he works with, an organization called UCAN. So tell us, so if you went to the website, ucanchicago.org, you will be able to see various things about the organization. And if you want to know about us, you'll find out more information about them, about the mission, the objectives, and so on. And the different programs that they have. Norman will tell us about some of the programs that exist there, but we just wanted you to know that this is the organization that we're talking about here. So Norman, tell us a little bit, how long have you been involved with UCAN, and what exactly you guys do there?
So I've been with UCAN for almost 7 years, and UCAN was founded as, they called it, an orphanage at that time, and this was something that was commissioned by Abraham Lincoln in 1869. It's an old organization. And for the first 120, 30 years, it was just that, a residential facility for young people who were in the care of DCFS, in the care of the state. And UCAN, over the last 20, 30 years, has really focused more on expanding our repertoire of work to include child welfare, foster care, mental health services, workforce development, and over the last 6.5 years, violence prevention.
So why did you choose to work with that organization?
Yeah, so I've worked, as you know, I've worked for a number of years for organizations like Cure Violence, Ceasefire, and just working in intervention work. But what attracted me about UCAN was their focus on trauma. So we have young people, adults, who have experienced very traumatic histories, just things beyond belief, just things that happen, one incident here, but things that are on a regular basis, witnessing crimes, witnessing shootings, witnessing, physical abuse in their homes, being shot at themselves, being shot, watching somebody killed in front of them. These are very traumatic experiences that if you don't have the opportunity to really debrief these events, you're just going to keep it bottled up, and it can manifest in different ways, right? So this organization, their vision is youth who have suffered trauma can become our future leaders. So think about this. Youth who have suffered trauma can become our future leaders.
Not only that they can heal, but they can become our future leaders.
So we don't throw them away because what they've been through. Because some people can go through some things, and when you're vulnerable enough to share that you've went through some things, people are kind of like done with you, But we're saying those people can be leaders. And we have so many examples of young people who have been traumatized, who have gone through horrific histories, who are leading organizations like ours and other organizations, and just in leadership positions as well.
So what do you think is an advantage? Because I sometimes think in peaceology, we think that many things that happen, even things that at the beginning may seem to be terrible, can somehow serve a good purpose. Not that it happened for a good reason, because people die and accidents happen, but after things happen, they have happened already. They can be recycled into a good purpose. So, and it seems that philosophy is consistent with that of UCAN. So if somebody went through trauma, what about the experience could potentially craft them that trauma is a precursor of excellence and leadership in the future?
Well, I mean, people need support to use it in that way, right? So we all go through different challenges, and some people say, oh, these people are resilient, and this is how they kind of get through it. But we need others to help us get through it, right? And we can turn it into a positive. So at the end of the day, we're made up of all of our experiences, negative and positive, right? And it's always helpful to have individuals, many individuals, who are supportive and are there for you to help you get through those things, but also to help keep you on that right track. It's like, a lot of times society minimizes the need to talk to someone. It's like, you're weak if you're talking to someone, you should be able to handle it yourself. No, we all need support. You go into corporations, they have mentors to help them become like stronger leaders. It's like, why should that be any different for teenagers who are growing up or young adults? We all need that ear. We all need somebody to support us and encourage us and say, you can do this, you can do this, and stop relying on that to come from the home, because home situations are very different than they were 20, 30 years ago. And some young people just aren't getting that experience at home. In their home, sometimes it's very violent. They're being broken down in their homes. So they're not going to get that positive support there. So we have to come from that standpoint that our young people aren't getting that at home anymore. So we really have to take that on and be supportive in any setting with any young person, whether they're a student of ours, a neighbor of ours, in one of our programs, on one of our teams. We shouldn't assume that they're good.
And I know that Glendora has read through your website, and I know he has some questions for you pertaining, some of the things. Having said that, what are questions? I have some questions for you about some of the programs and what they intend to do. But before we go to Glenn, I want to remind you that you're watching the Peaceful World Movement show, brought to you by the Peaceful World Movement, www.chipeace.net. We are on 11451 South Michigan Avenue in Chicago. And you can also find us at P.O. Box 206-308, Chicago, Illinois, 60628. And you can call us. Remember, it's a call-in show, 312-738-1060. So, Glenn, what questions you have for our guests?
Yes, Mr. Norman, you guys give out a Youth Achievement Award, and I would just like some more insight on what is the Youth Achievement Award, first of all, and what is the criteria for the students in order for them to receive that award?
Yeah, so it's a acknowledgement that we give out annually, and it's really grown over the years. It's grown from 1, and now we're giving 5 every year. We've been doing this for a number of years now, but it's really to acknowledge young people who have gone through some challenges. They're turning the corner. They're on a positive path now, and they're on the road to college or some sort of career, and we help them. The award actually provides a scholarship for them. Okay,
good. And now, is anybody any youth, I would say, from the community encouraged to apply for this award, or?
Well, this award is for those who are participants in our programs. So we service thousands of young people. So all of the young people that we serve are eligible.
Okay. How do they get recruited in?
Through various channels, so it really depends on the program. Some programs we interface with young people in schools. Some we get through the state, because we're working with the state. And we also get some with my program, a lot of our participants come to us from street outreach. So really our workers being on the street and building relationships with individuals on the street.
Good. And that's basically in the community where UCAN is located, or
just
around Chicago?
So we work all around Chicago. We just built a new campus, and we moved in 3 years ago on the west side of Chicago in the North Lawndale community. So the program that I run, we specifically work with that community, and we also work with the Roseland community as well. And then our other services are pretty much citywide.
Okay, good. Now, are individuals from the city of Chicago, is there a way for folks that are interested in volunteer at UCAN?
Man, that is such a good question. And we're always looking for volunteers. They can go to our website, ucanchicago.org. So Remember that UCAN, like UCAN, Chicago.org. And if you're interested in just learning more about our organization, if you're interested in volunteering with a specific, program, so we have an academy. So we have 2 different schools, one in Humble Park and one on the south side as well. We have, the residential facility, and we have numerous programs that people can volunteer on a lot of different levels. If you want to help with a music program or help with some of our workforce development, they can provide that service. We take donations for toys every year. We give out toys. We're doing a coat drive now. So there's numerous opportunities for volunteers to participate within the organization.
Okay, and as far as the coat drive you guys are doing and the toy drive, is just at UCAN individuals drop this?
Yes, they can drop them off in any UCAN office.
Okay.
On our website, we have multiple offices that are throughout the city, and they can drop off coats and toys we're collecting now. And we provide this to young people that we work with, as well as just people in general in the community.
Awesome.
We just did a shoe drive with Sigma Gamma Rho sorority, and they probably brought in about 300 pairs of shoes. And we provided that to our young people, and then we just took it out to the community, went to one of the local parks, and distributed like brand new shoes to young people and families.
Okay.
So to our question of how do you contribute to a more peaceful Chicago? And our peaceology question is to ask, why isn't there even more violence in Chicago? So does the reality of UCAN, does it fit any one of those 2 questions?
So how I believe I contribute is I first focus on my thought, right? So I have to have the right thoughts, not negative thoughts. When I think about things like violence, is it necessary? I even have to question myself, whether it's I'm driving home and I'm experiencing road rage, or somebody does something to me personally, I have to think about my thought. And I think about our program. So we work with 400 young people. So how can my thought positively or negatively influence the participants that we work with? So it comes through the staff that I work with, that are working with these participants and the community. All that's important. What I'm saying is that we have to start with ourselves. And where are we at with our thoughts and what we speak, right? And it's a thing that we have to be consistent about all the time. We have to be mindful all the time about how we present. Because the minute that we come off, in an inconsistent way, people are going to focus on that, right?
Exactly.
So I try to influence the program that I run, the organization that I work at, and also the partners that we work with in other organizations. So if I can help people look at things in a little bit different of a way than what they're used to, get them out of their comfort zone just a little bit. Like for instance, today we were talking about positive youth development, right? And this is a thing. This is a thing where you want to engage young people to help influence how we work with them. So valuing their opinions instead of being adultists and just saying, this is the way it should be done, do this, and that's how we talk to young people. That's how it was when I was growing up,
Same way when I was.
So now we have to include them in the process because it's important for them to have some sort of say. They have more buy-in and they know how to reach their peers, right? So it's things like this that start with the whole peace process, I think. Why don't we have more violence? I think that's a really big question. But I also think that at the heart of it, we have a lot of good people. A lot of good people. Do we focus enough on the positive? Probably not. And I think if we focus more on that and less on the negative, we would see that, we have really strong communities and stronger families than we think and stronger individuals than we think. Focus on the positive assets that they have, right? And then, we nurture them and we support them to address some of the negative issues that they're dealing with as well.
So one of the things that we want to learn is more about the impact of trauma You know, I'm a United States veteran. I'm a
Yes.
veteran, and colleagues, we go to war and we come back, and you know the VA is set up, and we have other counseling set up for people, even for those of us who may not even have seen battle, but just living it vicariously through the stories of others. What are the ramifications of the experiences of trauma as it relates to issues of violence in Chicago? Especially, I'm talking about experienced trauma, like from a young person that never even thought of hurting anyone.
So I mean, it's a really like big question that you ask, and there's not one answer because people internalize the trauma that they've experienced in different ways. You know, so for some people, it could motivate them to do something violent, right? Some people will just shut down and not do anything. They won't be productive. You know, sometimes in schools, you know, classrooms, you'll see young people who are very like, you know, boisterous and animated, you know, that could be a result of it. And there's some who are totally withdrawn and they won't engage at all. They don't participate in the classes. And unfortunately, in both of those cases, sometimes those kids get sent to the principal's office because they're not behaving a certain way. You know, so we have to understand that when we think about trauma, it is broader and bigger than anything that we could think of, because we can't just say this is how they're going to act and be that prepared for it, right? So we have to like approach individuals, you know, from this like universal approach, you know, that like let's pretend that they've experienced trauma, like the worst trauma possible. So I'm going to interact with them from that lens. That's the safest way to do it, because then, you know, I won't be surprised at their behavior, right? If they haven't experienced trauma, fine. But if I see a young person who's like really disruptive, they could have gone through so many things, and this is how it comes out for them, right? So there's been experiences where, you know, these kids have been suspended and all these other things, and it's like he was disruptive because he was shot at earlier that day, or somebody close to him and his family was killed the day before. Now, if you knew that, you would say, oh, it makes sense. But a lot of times you're not going to know that unless you're asking those questions. And sometimes if they trust you enough to even tell you, right? Exactly. So we have to assume that when we see some of this behavior in the neighborhoods especially, there's some contributing factor to this. Mm-hmm. These kids just aren't born violent like people say, and they're just coming out, just want to carry guns and shoot people. There's some things that have happened. And the more that I've, you know, had conversations with even adult males, and they will, you know, really divulge that they were abused when they were younger, all these things that have happened to them, and they never made the connection with them being victimized and some of the maladaptive behaviors that they've taken on, right?
That's totally understandable.
And when they understand it, then they start looking at themselves a little bit differently. Like, man, they're not so upset with themselves because they've been blaming themselves for years. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Now it starts to make sense for them. And they can be like more like compassionate to themselves.
Because oftentimes we talk about forgiveness, but sometimes the person that is most difficult to forgive is yourself.
Exactly.
You know, so it's that
exactly. We beat ourselves up, and sometimes it takes somebody else to give you the permission.
Does you feel that way?
To be compassionate to yourself and not beat yourself up, right? So sometimes you get that from talking to an elder. Some people rely on, you know, some sort of like spiritual leader. Some people rely on a therapist, you know. But we all need somebody to talk to, you know. The barbershop sometimes isn't enough. It's helpful, but sometimes that isn't enough. We need somebody who can really help us, you know, see the other side.
Folks, let me remind you, you are watching the Shy Peace Show, brought to you by the Peaceful World Movement, 11451 South Michigan Avenue in Chicago, and you can visit us on the web at www.shypeace.net. Urban Grind TV, one of the nonprofit organizations, the Shy Peace logo. When you visit our website at shypeace.net, you can get some information about us. You can get ways that you can get involved with us. And actually, a couple of events that we recently had, we had a talk entitled Criminology and Responsible Policing, and we had a face-to-face conversation with the former Chicago Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy. You really want to know what I thought about that? If you call in, I'll tell you what I really thought about that. And then we also had at the night another conversation that was called the Peaceology Approach, that a way to address the violence problem in Chicago by using the Peaceology approach. And we introduced the word ZWAPAM. That probably brings a smile to Norman's face because we spoke about that a lot in India. It was a solution-based conversation at North Park University that happened there on Monday at the Johnson Center. But when you visit our website, the Peaceful World Movement, and you visit the Urban Peace Lab, you will see that I'm the founder and executive director, the nonprofit component within North Park University, in charge of Oral Vision. Dr. Bonner is our is associate director and responsible for various activities. Irik Berger, Shauna Wang, Tio Hardeman, Dr. Daisy Henderson. Oh, Glenn Durant. Glenn Durant is on there too. We're trying to get Norman Kerr's name on there, but he's I don't know. He's eventually at some point. We can see more. I mean, it's when you visit the website, you'll be able to see more of what's going on. But very importantly, I want to show you that one of the things that the vision of the Urban Peace Lab of the Peaceful World Movement Collaborative here at North Park is to basically to promote peaceology, better news research, and to establish what we call social promise, and to engage in various activities to do this. And when we talk about peaceology, we're talking about the scientific study and the practice of peace and peacefulness in multiple contexts, with a belief that a major solution to violence and trouble is to make peace profitable. And talking about making peace profitable, Norman and I were part of a group that went from the 29th or so, 27th or so, I left around so, to the 3rd of October. We went to India. And we were part of a group that Manda Apte, from India with Love, brought us over. And some of you heard that we mentioned about this on the show before. And before I came on here, I was so anxious to show Norman with his Jamaican belt and his waist walking in the slums of India that I loaded too many pictures and I could get none of them now. So you don't get to see a picture of Norman in India. So you have to use your imagination. But Norman, doing the work that you do here in Chicago, and going to India, and if I have the liberty to say that, if it were not for a missed airplane flight, you would not have made it to the slum, right? Because the slum was not part of the deal, but there were some complications with the flights, and somehow we happened to stay over, and we happened to be there together. But tell us about what was the experience, especially when you talk about trauma and healing, and when you talk about the experiences that we had from the breathing techniques and from the visiting Mumbai and visiting Bangalore. What are some of the experiences how you relate that experience to the work that you do?
Yeah, so when the opportunity came to go to India, I said, I can't let this pass. I have to go. I pride myself on being a learner, in any way possible. If it's reading something, if it's, taking a class, teaching a class, if it's, going to another context to see something for myself. Like, I think those are all different avenues of learning, and I'm going to jump on it. So to go to India, I'm like, wow, India wasn't a place that was on my list of places to go. I wanted to go to, different parts of Africa and all these other places. And when this opportunity came, I said, you know what, I have to go. And then with the context of the conversation that was going to happen there around nonviolence and really tying in Martin Luther King's teachings as well as Gandhi's teachings, I said, this is something that is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. When I got there, I was blown away by, first of all, just like the busyness of the place, of Mumbai. But the busyness, and Glenn, the place is loud. You hear horns honking the whole time, but the honking is very different than what you hear in downtown Chicago or in New York. It's not like, get the hell out the way. It's, I'm here. I'm just letting you know I'm here, you know? And I don't expect you to hit me. I'm just letting you know I'm here. And I think that's really an indication of just where people are there. It's like, it's on a more peaceful level, period, you know? So I think part of that is people being like very connected to spirituality there. We went there and we did a lot of like mindfulness work, you know, a lot of meditation, a lot of breathing, and just like connecting, right? And I think that's more of the way of life there, you know, so I could totally appreciate that the entire trip, you know, and left the trip wanted to incorporate, you know, some of those principles into my everyday life. My staff, when I got back, they said, you're different, you know, and just from being there for 2 weeks. And yes, missing my visa up, you know, having issues with the visa helped me stay another day. And, you know, this guy, you know, being the ethnographer he is, he wants to be in the midst of it. He said he's going to the slums. I'm like, I'm going with you.
Yeah.
So, you know, I said, man, you know, he's going to go to the slums and going to go talk to people. And, you know, he's got his camera. He wants to take pictures. He wants to record. And that was one of the best things I've ever done, was to go into the slums of Mumbai, just see how people are living. And there's still an appreciation for life, even though, you know, somebody from Chicago or from the West Side would say, wow, those are some really terrible circumstances.
That's the question I was just going to ask
You know?
Like, I was just going to, because a hobby of mine is to compare, you know, the low-income neighborhoods and the different living conditions in those types of areas. So what are the difference you're seeing in Mumbai from, say, the South Side?
Oh, man. So let me tell you this. So I took a lot of pictures and like short videos. And when you're driving in Mumbai, it's super poor. Like, there's no place in Chicago that's that poor. And there's really like small, you know, shacks with tarp on top. And, you know, just some of the video that you're seeing now, this is the busyness of it. But the poverty is so large there. And there's, you know, dogs running around. This is like in the Dharavi slums here. But, you know, even though it's that poor, on some of these shacks you see a satellite dish, you know?
No,
So
wow.
a satellite dish has become a necessity.
Okay.
You know, so we have a satellite dish, but we're super poor,
Exactly.
you know? And we're sleeping on the floor. And it's many of us sleeping on the floor in this really small room. And in some of one of the slums that we went to, there's a communal bathroom. So hundreds of people use the same toilet every day.
Wow.
So when we have these conversations with young people who live on the West Side, and they're saying that they're poor and they don't have certain opportunities, it's like, if they saw what was going on in Mumbai, they would be like, I live in a palace.
Yes, they'll be more thankful.
They would be like, wow, I got my own bed. It's a twin-size bed. It's on the floor. Who cares? But I have my own one.
Exactly.
And they can't understand those things unless they actually, you know, really see and experience another context.
Okay.
And it's amazing too how people make life. You know, we saw the pottery being made. We saw, like you're seeing here, the street theatrics, and the little boy flying a kite, people playing drafts outside, people playing ping pong. You know, so it doesn't matter what type of circumstances that oftentimes people are placed into, people are trying to find ways to make their lives be worthwhile. So even in those destitute situations, you know, we can find beauty in humanity, right? You find that when we went through the slum, it was amazing, you know, the type of businesses that were there. You see somebody here getting a haircut, and people are finding ways to smile. People are finding ways to be happy. because one way or the other, we have to find ways to engineer happiness. We have to find ways to engineer creativity, to find some promise, to find a way to get ourselves out of situations that seem very hopeless. And we, it was great. We were down the same alleyway, down this area there. And the interesting thing is that there are some sections that are business sections, and there are some sections that are residential sections. And it's important to see the difference, even in the same space. And millions of dollars are made because we were asking, well, are the slums going to go away? Are the slums going to be around for a while? And the answer is that no, the slums are kind of here to stay, because in spite of the fact that you see those types of ravines, you see those types of realities, there are people in there that are trying to find ways to build the quality of life. And I would like to see bring a bunch of Chicago students over there to Mumbai so they can see part of the reality. And maybe, interestingly, it seems that even some people in India themselves may not have had, have experiences in seeing parts of the city the same way like some people in parts of the Chicago may not have seen that reality.
But I think spirituality is more deeply rooted in this community, in the Indian community than in Chicago. I mean, we've seen just decreases in attendance of people going to church and just believing, in something, right? When we were in India, I was talking to, someone, and they said they believe that the young people there are so spiritual that that's something that they never want to disappoint. So that's, at the end of the day, that's something, regardless of your parents or whatever, that's something that they don't want to break that. So they're only going to go to a certain level. They're not going to be violent or certain things because they're so concerned about the afterlife that they don't want to mess that up.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Awesome. And we don't have anything that's that holding over young people here. A lot of our young people don't believe that strongly in church or, because of, just how communities have changed. Exactly. And households have changed. But there, the faith is still very strong that at the end of the day, they want to go in a positive place when it's all said and done with. So they're not going to cross certain lines.
Folks, let me remind you that you're watching the Peaceful World Movement Show. We're at 11451 South Michigan Avenue in Chicago, P.O. Box 208-308, Chicago, Illinois 60628, 716-603-0992, and you can find us at www.shypeace.net. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here in studio with Norman Kerr, the Vice President. Big bout here. The big boss here in studio with us, with our guest Glenn Durant. And I know you guys just enjoy listening to us so much, and you do not want to call. But Sarah is lonely back there. Sarah wants a couple calls. So call in at 312-738-1060 and have a conversation with us. Now, you were talking about, Norman, spirituality. And here we see you with someone that seems to be a spiritual person. Who is this person and what's going on here in this picture?
So this is Shri Ravi Shankar. He is a spiritual leader of the Art of Living. And this is the Art of Living compound that we visited and stayed at. It's an ashram in Bangalore, India. He's their spiritual leader. So someone who they look to for wisdom, for guidance, and interpretation of spirituality.
Okay. And what was it like meeting with him?
Well, he's a very calm guy and relaxed and very thoughtful, so takes his time, thinks about what he's going to say and, loves the work that we're doing around, addressing violence and, working with communities and families and young people.
Hey, guys, hold this. We have a caller. Hey, caller, thank you so much for joining us. We feel less lonely with you. Please let us know your question or comment.
So this question is for your guests with regards to the work that they do. What is probably one of the biggest challenges your organization faces with young people today in terms of trying to create a more peaceful person or situation in their community?
Very good question, caller. Thank you so much for that. Norman?
Yeah, I mean, so there's definitely a lot of challenges, and part of it is when young people cross a certain line and do something negative, the road back is very difficult as far as people accepting them and supporting them. It's almost like you messed up, so we're done with you. And people can change. We see it all the time. People change. People have, committed murders and done all kind of horrendous things, and they could come back and be super positive and want to help the community and feel obligated to do so. But with all the things that are going on nowadays, I think when young people are going through these challenges, they need love. They don't need people to write them off and say, you know what, you ain't no good, and you just like other people that haven't been any good. It's like that's when they need us to step up. And we don't do that enough. So they see those examples. I mean, they talk about, different entities like the church and leadership at schools and so forth because they feel like they've been let down, right? And even just like in homes. So they have to feel that they're supported, and we can't just rely on like traditional families to do that. Again, this goes back to the proverb, it takes a village. It really takes a village.
So, caller, are you still with us, caller?
I am.
Is it okay for me? Is it okay for me to ask you a question?
You can.
Okay, you're here in Chicago, I presume, are you?
I am in Chicago.
Okay, so part of the question we ask people is how do they contribute to a more peaceful Chicago? There are a lot of men in Chicago who are not free. Now, when I say free in terms of not being incarcerated, you are one of them. How did you navigate your life to be one of those that are here in the free world instead of one being incarcerated?
Well, I guess it's important for me as an African-American male, but you know what? Bigger than being African-American, as a person, that I have to be reminded every day of what's most important. And even though there will be challenges that get in the way of what those aims are, I have to, in essence, be able to love or care about myself in every context so that I can have the wherewithal, or the word was used earlier, resiliency, to be able to endure long enough to have a chance to reset and get right back in the fight. Quitting is not an option. And to be a peaceful person, one must start, yes, with love, but they also have to be a student of life. And I think that's where you start. You have to be a student of life and never see it as a sense of completion, but a continuation of doing good works.
Wow. When you say a student of life, what exactly do you mean?
That is, you have to love the good and the bad. You have to be a builder, and sometimes you have to be willing to destroy or tear down the very things that you think define you, only to redefine yourself as you move forward towards a particular goal that may not necessarily benefit you directly, but indirectly benefit so many others through your work.
Brother, you see, that's part of why we said in peaceology, we asked the question of why, criminology asked, why is there so much violence in Chicago? And then we say, yes, in peaceology, we say, well, why is there so much violence? But the real question is, why isn't there more? And we believe that if we are able to tap more into people like yourself and says what helps to keep you peaceful, so we can help to share this intelligence among other people, because there are a lot of others of us that practice. And much of why there is not much more violence in Chicago, because each day in Chicago, there are a lot of people that find their own ways to make peace profitable, to realize from themselves how they can deposit a little peace and get a lot of peace more from others. And your life, and for the little bit that you've told us, seems to be testimony to that. And I want to thank you. I want to encourage you to stay along that line.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you. And you guys keep up the good work.
Thanks. Let me ask you one last question before you head off. You saw the video that we showed in Mumbai when we were over there, the sections we were over in India. How do you make sense of that? I don't know if you've visited India yet, but as somebody who lives in Chicago, who's aware of poverty in different areas and so on, when you see these kinds of reality, what kind of questions come to your mind?
You know what? Honestly, no real question comes to mind, because in essence, there are slums in every nation and all over the world, and the people are just different, but the circumstances are real. Poverty is real.
Living in impoverished communities is real, and we're all fighting for a way to have our equity or our agency within these communities where we come from. So folks on the west, south side of Chicago, in many ways are like the folks in India. It's just that we tackle different issues.
Man, you're a deep brother, man. Thank you so much for calling and contributing to our show, and continue to do great work. Help continuing to promote a more peaceful Chicago in your own way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, great opportunity, right? That's good.
No, so Norman, one question I want to pose to you that you can share with the Shy Peace viewers. What did you take away from your experience with the spiritual leader that you can share with us today that can, be that drop in the bucket that start the process to a more spiritual aware living?
Well, I think, the brother kind of touched on it. I mean, it's really, I want to better myself. I want to start with myself. So I want to be more peaceful, and I want to be able to radiate that peace to others, right? So, when I was younger, I was very impatient. I just had to have things like right now. It's like my mom would be proud now if she could see like that I'm a lot more patient, that I'm a lot more focused. And I think now I still have work to do. There's no doubt. But I think if we can start always, remind ourselves that we have to focus on ourselves, right? It's not selfish. It's something that we need to do to make ourselves better, but also make the people around us better, So just seeing how thoughtful he was about how he answered things and prepared himself to talk about things. Sometimes, I will respond very quickly without thinking about it. A lot of us do that.
That's what I hear.
So being able to really be thoughtful and center and connect with myself before I think, before I speak, before I do actions, right? And I think if we're all doing that, we would have a different circumstance around us.
Okay,
And these are some of the people that joined us here in India. And we had, I don't see her in the picture here, but we had an awesome, I think this is here somewhere, we had an awesome instructor that taught us about mindfulness, although that's not exactly what they call it, but the idea of the importance of breathing. And I think if there's anything that I took away the most that I could hopefully carry the rest of my life is the whole idea that our life is defined by our first breathe in and our first breathe out. And our death is really marked by our last breathe in and our last breathe out. And throughout this first breathe in and breathe out and this last inhale and exhale is the life that we have.
Right.
So how are you living that life? And as a matter of fact, a lot of us do not live our lives happily enough because we are so focused on the past that is already gone that we could do nothing about, and so focused on the future that is not yet here, so we can't do anything about, that the present is escaping us. And the only thing that can really keep us in the present is our breathing. I mean, just try to hold, if you try to hold your breath for a while, and if after a while you can breathe, nothing else matters. Or if somebody else is holding your breath, it could be your little baby, it could be underwater, whatever it is, that only thing you're going to focus on is your breathing. So if you learn about breathing exercises, it can distract you from your worries of the past, and it can distract you from the worries of the future. And then once you start to get into that, you get to learn how to breathe from the back of your throat, through your nostrils, you get to learn cadences, and you get to, I mean, we when we did the exercises, we all laid down on the mat. I mean, you could hear some brothers snoring. I'm not going to say if Norman was one of them or not, and please don't say if I was one of them, right? So I'll keep your secret. But and afterwards we came back rejuvenated, and and then it reminded me of nap time, in the that's why the kids running around and get up. So we had a little nap time. But it is important that when we know, for any of you, when you hear about mindfulness and you hear about yoga and meditation, just take an opportunity and try a little bit of this and see what we get. Ladies and gentlemen, time flies when you're having fun. Can you imagine it's almost an hour? And Sarah is telling us we have about 2 more minutes or 1 more minute or so to go. So, gentlemen, it's time. I will give the first courtesy to our co-hosts to tell us, what are your impression, your major takeaway, and then I'm going to give a last word to our guests out of our show so far today.
I mean, basically, the last thing you touched on, the breathing, that's very important. As you said, if we can't breathe, living is not even worth doing if you can't breathe properly.
And the quality of the breath makes a big difference.
Exactly.
Norman, thanks again for coming out. What do you have going to leave our viewers
My
with?
pleasure. Well, I guess the breathing is important, and what you were saying about the past and the future, that's what we focus on. So it's like a pendulum. Our thoughts are always about things that have happened in the past and things that what we want to do in the future, and we never focus on the present.
Oh, very seldom.
So the breathing helps us center to like what's going on like right this minute.
So you might be making Manda very proud. Manda is probably smiling somewhere and saying, yes, India was worth something for us. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for watching the Shy Peace Show. We want to thank you for calling our caller, awesome caller, here calling in for the Peaceful World Movement at 11451 South Michigan Avenue. Thank you so much for calling. We will see you again at 6 o'clock on next week when we have another show. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And remember to visit us at www.shypeace.net. And if you go on the Shy Peace Show, you will be able to see our other shows. Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Peter KB St. Jean signing out. Until next time. Bye-bye.